Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
We have a guest with Scott, quite an amazing story. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Today we have Timothy O'Donnell, and really to introduce him, I don't know anything better than to say he is a professional triathlete. That's what he does. He trains and he competes, and he does it very, very well. Thank you, Tim, for being on the show with us today.
My pleasure, fellas. It's always great to chat with great people.
Good. So, Dylan, just real briefly, tell us, how did you get into being a triathlete? What got you into that?
Well, my journey began in the pool. I started swimming competitively when I was 5 years old, and eventually went to the United States Naval Academy, where I was a member of the varsity swim team. And while I was there, my older brother, Thomas, who was a senior my freshman or plebe year, was on the triathlon club team, and he convinced me to try out. He didn't convince me, actually. He gave me an order from an upper class to try out for the triathlon team. And I did, and I hated it. And I kept on doing it for maybe 2 more years. And the end of my sophomore year, I really actually kind of started to find it intriguing. And I wanted to see how I could test myself in this new sport. And that's really where my career started.
So that was sophomore in high school or sophomore in college?
That's college.
And so then did you become did you compete in college, like for a college, or?
I did. So my first 2 years at Navy, I swam and I was on the varsity swim team, and I was a member of the triathlon club team. And then after my sophomore year, I decided to stop swimming and focus on triathlon. And then I led the Naval Academy men's triathlon team to 2 national championships my junior and senior year.
So how many professional triathlons have you competed in?
Oh, too many. Too many to count. No, I mean, honestly, I was probably doing 10 to 12 races a year for 20 years. So quite a few.
Quite a few. So I heard a story that you told recently, about a particular race, and let's talk a little bit about that. Will you walk us through that? What happened? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, so in March of 2021, I had which what it would end up being the most eventful race of my career and my life, and it wasn't because how I did, it wasn't where I finished in the race. It's because what happened to me. And about those for those of you who aren't familiar, triathlon's a swim, bike, run, and this particular race was around a half Ironman distance. It was like a mile swim, 50-mile bike, and a half marathon. And about 2/3 through the bike, I started to get this shooting pain in my chest, and kind of spreading pain through my chest, shooting pain down my left arm. And my jaw really started to lock up, and I just started to feel nauseous and didn't feel very good. And when you're racing triathlon, you're used to dealing with a lot of pain and pushing through, so to speak. And I just told myself, hey, you know what? This is just racing. You know, you're the first race of the season with one of the biggest fields of the year, and you got to perform. So I tried to push through it, and then it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I got off the bike early because I was starting to get delirious. Got back on the bike, kept going, finished the race, and tried to rally for the party after the race and to hang out with everybody, but I just couldn't do it, and couldn't even stand up at that point. And then I called my doctor back home here in Boulder, Colorado, and told him what was going on. And he said, Tim, you need to take aspirin right now and get to the hospital. And it turns out I was suffering from what they call a widowmaker heart attack, an almost complete blockage of my LAD. And survival rate of that is about 12%. So really, really scary point in my life. Glad to be here. Glad I made it through. And don't recommend finishing a triathlon when you're having a heart attack, everyone out there.
so I missed part of that, but did you say you fell off the bike, or you just went through it and things corrected, or you just woke up in the hospital?
So what the race was actually at the Miami Speedway, the NASCAR track. So the bike in the run was on the race car track, and it was a 17 lap bike. And I actually got off the bike a lap early because I thought I was done with the bike because I was just so out of it. And then they yelled at me, "No, no, you got another lap." So oh, okay, stumbled up, got back on my bike, finished that last lap, and then I started the run and just got through the run, got to the finish line. I ended up in 11th place, and I was really mad at myself because the prize money pays 10 deep, and my second child, Finn, was 8 weeks old at the time. So I'm out there racing for diaper money, right? I'm trying to get it done, and and then I just kind of kept trying to go around and do my normal self. And particularly after an Ironman race, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a marathon, which is was my bread and butter race. After you do those races, you usually feel pretty crappy for a while. You're beat up, your stomach's messed up, your body hurts, you're tired. So I was having a little trouble differentiating what was like post-race pains and what was a heart attack. And eventually that's when I called my doc, and he told me to get to the hospital.
Wow, that's incredible. So like when you showed up to the hospital, they just hook you up to an ECG or whatever machine to check and see? Did they give you meds? Did you actually go into cardiac arrest?
So when I went into the hospital, and I'd actually been having some red flags the year before that I went and saw my cardiologist in Boulder, and even with professionals, they see a very fit, 42-year-old, or at the time, I guess 40-year-old guy. And they're like, yeah, he's fine. And they kind of had that same thing at the hospital. They thought I was dehydrated, so they gave me an IV, and I'm literally rolling like over in pain. And then they finally realized they ran. There's a enzyme in your blood called troponin, and that's an indicator of a heart attack. And those numbers were through the roof. And I remember my doctor was actually on the phone with the emergency room doc, he was a young guy, walking him through like, hey, this is what's probably going on. So it took actually several hours to get it addressed, and they had to actually take me to a better hospital. This hospital didn't have a cardiac emergency cardiac department, so they put me in an ambulance, and they rushed me off to the other hospital. They bring the big paddles. At this point, they're like, oh man, this guy could he could flatline right now. So they got the big defib machine out. It escalated pretty quickly, and luckily they got me to a hospital with one of the best cardiology departments in the country. And they put even the cardiologist was like, oh, we're just going to go in and we're going to see. We don't think this is a heart attack, but we're just going to go check. And then it was quiet when they got in there, and they started going in and doing the procedure. And ended up placing a giant stent at the top of my LAD. And the first thing the doctor said to me was, well, Tim, I guess you're going to have to find a new career. And that hit me a little bit hard at that point. Here I was thinking, at one point, am I going to die? And I'm dealing with that. And now I'm thinking, oh man, I'm out of a job. So it was a tumultuous evening for sure.
I'm sure. So you've reflected a lot about this event. Mm-hmm. I mean, what nuggets of wisdom have you been able to glean from looking over this so many years later?
I think the most important thing is that fitness isn't health. And I think a lot of people get that confused. I know I did. Here I am in the middle of a professional triathlon race, thinking there's no way I could be having a heart attack. I had like the obvious signs, right? Like the spreading chest pain, left arm pain. I mean, these are like classic heart attack signs. And here I am thinking, can't happen to me. Surely I'd be on the ground if I was having a heart attack right now. So I think that's the most important thing. No matter how fit you are, you have to pay attention to your health. And above all else, that's the most important thing. I mean, even with your family, if you're not around for them because you're in poor health, then what good are you, right? And I think, reflecting with my having children at such a young age, it really made me reconsider what I'm doing in life too, and how important it is to be around them. And my priorities have definitely shifted. And I did get back to racing, but it was a lot harder to go out on those 7-8 hour bike rides when you should just be hanging out with your kids on a Saturday morning.
I gotcha. So during this time where you're trying to figure out your career, what does my health look like? Did you just put a pause on everything? Did you continue with certain things? Did the doctor say no more of everything? You just need to be a couch potato for a while?
So I went through a lot with my wife, Marinda, and she's actually a 3-time IRONMAN World Champion. So she knows, the sport very well. She is one of the greatest of all time. So we sat down and I said, hey, I don't need to race. I don't need triathlon. I've had a great career. I'm a world champion. I've been on the podium at the IRONMAN World Championships, twice. It's been a good career. I can leave knowing I left the best in me out on the race course. But that being said, I love it and I want to do it, and I don't want this to be my end. So we said, hey, if we find the best sports cardiologist in the world and he gives me the okay, then let's do it. And I did just that. I went to Mass General in Boston, worked with Dr. Aaron Bagish, ran through the tests, and he said, Tim, this was a specific event. The compromised artery is now stronger than ever with that stent you have in there. There's no plaque in other parts of your heart. So one more aside there, not only do you have a stent in there, but there's scar tissue that happens when your heart goes through that event. So I did have some scar tissue on my in my heart, and usually the longer that you are in an MI or myocardial infarction, the worse the scarring is going to be. And this happened at 3 p.m. and I didn't get my stent put until maybe like 1 a.m. in the morning. So I was under duress for a long time. My heart should have been there should be a massive scar in my heart. Luckily, there wasn't that much scar tissue damage, because that affects the way the heart pumps. And if the heart can't pump blood, then you can't go out and race triathlon, right? Or at least you can do it, you can't do it fast. But, so all these things lined up really in my favor. I was incredibly lucky to be alive. And then I was incredibly lucky that I had minimal damage to my actual heart. So this is really crazy. So with that, blessing from Dr. Bagish, I got back to it. And it was hard. It was honestly harder mentally than it was physically, to be honest. Questioning, do I need to be doing this? Is this going to be hurting me? Because the further you are from the information, the harder it is to realize that this is okay for you. And anybody that experiences a cardiac event, at the end of the day, being healthy and fit is going to help you either survive another one or hopefully prevent another one, right? So working out and being physically active is very important for part of the rehab process after a cardiac event. But it's scary. Mentally it's scary. And particularly for me when it happened during an event. So I had to really work through the mental side of all that, and just be okay with being out there and pushing myself. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got back.
Cool. That's really cool. So, looking back and stuff, was there anything that you could have done to prevent that? Did the doctor give you any heads up on, or even tips that other people should be paying attention to that might be able to help them in a similar circumstance, or to prevent it, hopefully?
Right. So in my case, a lot of it was genetics. And I think that's something that I preach now is, hey, learn your family history. My parents directly haven't had issues, but if I look back, through our records from previous generations, there is a lot of cardiovascular disease, so specifically plaque buildup in arteries. And so the warning signs were there for sure. So I think paying attention to your family history, knowing the signs and symptoms, so that if something does happen, you can respond quickly. And then just checking in, if you're a high risk and you know that you have family history, you start doing blood work or scans and notice plaque buildup, then you really have to be on top of it. And at the end of the day, here I was, trying to be proactive, going into the doctor before this all happened, but not really taking control of my own health. I kind of took a back seat when they said, oh, it's fine. Even though, I was having flutters in my chest and things like that. I knew I wasn't I wasn't right, but I wanted to race so bad. I wanted to just keep training. I didn't want this to get in my way. So when they said, yeah, you're probably okay, I just took them at that word and kept going. So really taking ownership of your own health, finding the right people, doctors, specialists that are willing to really dig in deep with you. I think that's so important.
I've heard you say a couple of times, and other times that I've listened to you, that you think it's very important that you invest in your health. What do you mean by that?
So I think it's knowing what's going on inside your body. Like for me, for example, now I do my blood work quarterly with Inside Tracker, and I can actually track my my markers, my biomarkers, to make sure that I am keeping everything. I'm keeping my body in the best place it can be. Right. Another thing I do is I do Clearly scans, which is a really advanced AI-based heart scan that can actually show you not only calcified plaque, but can show you unstable plaque, which is the killer. So all unstable plaque can be calcified at one point, but when you have that unstable plaque, that's what ruptures, that's what fills your arteries up immediately, and that's really the deadly situation. But with something like Clearly, you can know within their AI, it can actually model out the plaque creation in your body and help you take preemptive action, or know that you are tracking in a good way. So I've done that the last 2 years, and I'm actually stabilizing more plaque than I ever have, and my risk through the projections is quite low. So I'm pretty happy about that.
This whole idea of investing in your health. I mean, my wife often says that people use up their health in an attempt to get wealth, the first part of life. And then they essentially spend down their wealth in the possibility to get their health back. Right.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of what you're seeing, investing in your health, that needs to be something that should be top of the list. In fact, I was listening to a different podcast earlier this morning, and they were talking about the billionaires that they had met. Mm-hmm. And the reality was they may or may not look like they're in good shape, but everyone that this individual had been associated with were actually in really good shape. Mm-hmm. They were very careful in the kinds of foods they were eating. They were very careful in the exercising on a regular basis. It sounds like to me they're doing supplements, and we're talking like Elon Musk, big names that they still are very careful about investing in their health. So I'm right alongside you there.
And I think
podcast is all about accumulating, enjoying your wealth, and passing it on. And so the whole idea that I had with inviting you on this is the fact that here's a professional triathlete at the tip top shape. I mean, to do the distances that you're talking about, swim that far and then bike that far and then ride. Is it usually swim, bike, ride? I mean, swim, bike, and then run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always swim first. I think it would be the lifeguards would be pulling a lot of people out of the water if they had to swim after the bike and the run.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. They might wind up getting exhausted and going under.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. Interesting. So the whole idea of investing in your health, and you also have said the importance of investing in yourself. And what do you mean? Because that's different than investing in your wealth. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if I look at just on a basic level throughout my career, and my wife Marinda, really kind of helped me get put this in perspective too. And in terms of investing in yourself, we would spend a lot of money on just things like body maintenance, coaching, like whatever we could, to help our performance, we would put that money in it. And a lot of people don't want to invest in themselves or what they're doing. Whether, they're afraid of the exposure when they're spending that money, or they're just afraid to really know the best version of themselves. And I see that a lot in competitive sports. A lot of people are willing to train very hard, get very fit, but they're not willing to show their hearts and expose themselves on race day in fear of failing. And then they never really achieve their ultimate. But we never, we always spent the money where we needed to make sure our bodies and our minds were performing the way they should. And I think that's very important.
It's interesting. I heard you say the C word, the coach. Here we have a professional athlete, someone who has competed now for over a decade, and that's your main source of income. And yet you have a coach. You have a coach in each of the different areas. I mean, one in swimming, one in biking, one in riding, or do you have a triathlete coach?
My coaching team, I have a head coach, Julie, who managed the whole program and swim, run particularly. Then I have a separate bike specialist coach and then a separate strength coach. Sometimes you bring a sports psychologist in there. And then of course you have, a physio by your side, you have a chiropractor by your side, you have a massage therapist by your side. So it's an individual sport, but none of the best have ever done it completely by themselves, right? There's always the right people behind them that can, not only skilled, but have the right attitude and the right support to make sure that you become the version of yourself that can win.
I love that. And I'm glad that you said it the way you did. I have this coach, this coach, this coach. And that's what, when you read biographies of some of the greats, and I don't care whether that's in athletics or in other areas, they all have coaches. And for different reasons, right? Your mindset, like you said, psychology, etc. Right? You have a coach, and so to hear you say, have someone on the podcast say flat out, go get a coach, and to find the right one for you. And I'm assuming you compensate all these coaches, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They're all,
right. So they're professionals.
They're all on the payroll, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and you should want to, right? I know a lot of you guys younger, if you're a young triathlete, it's hard to pay the bills, and coach may help you out, but you should want to be paying your coach, because if you're not, they're probably not putting in the effort that you need them to put into you. So it has to be, they have to feel their worth. And I think the most important, I can sit down and write myself a training program, no problem. I coach athletes myself, but there's so much stress involved in training and preparing for a race that the burden of worrying about every single session, oh, should I be doing this workout on the bike? Oh, should I be swimming today? You have to take as much as you can off your shoulders so you can focus on winning. And I think that's the true value of a coach. And I've had coaches that, I've had different coaches in my career. I'm thinking of one, my good friend, Cliff English. I worked with him for, 7, maybe 8 years. And he really lifted me up. He brought me to the top of the sport. And, eventually I had to switch, and it was harder than breaking up with a girlfriend. That's how important the coach is to me. And that's how strong our relationship was. It was by far like the worst breakup I've ever had in my life. And we're still great friends now. But I had a former Olympian, a good friend of mine, Greg Bennett, tell me, hey, Tim, coaches are like degrees. And sometimes you've learned everything you can from a coach, and you need to go to some follow-on education or study something else. And I think at different times in your career, different points in your life, what you need changes. And, you just have to make sure that when things change or you want something to change, you put the right person around you or right people around you.
Cool. So anything that you said to invest in, because we kind of do some background work and stuff, and you said real estate. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like real estate is a good place to be putting your money?
I absolutely love real estate. And it started just when I go on bike rides and you see for sale signs and you're just like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what that house is. When you start looking at values and then you see appreciation, you're like, wait, what it's worth now? It was worth this a couple of years ago. So I started, and I live in Boulder. I moved here in 2010 and bought a place here. And Boulder's great area to live, absolutely gorgeous. It's gotten very expensive. So that's where I started to see appreciation. And then I really wanted to take control of my own future. And I saw the different benefits of being able to invest. And I worked with Buddy Rushing at White Feather Investments to kind of start building a real estate portfolio, mainly long-term rentals. I've been in, you know, some syndications, different things like that. But honestly, that's all we put our you know, our money into now is new real estate opportunity. I just see such value in so many different levels with tax benefits, appreciation, cash flow. I mean, it's endless.
So what got you into it? What attracted you to real estate to start off with?
So we bought our properties here in Boulder, and I realized what good assets we bought. We bought our house, and we bought some land that we eventually built our new home on. And I just started thinking, this is really, I actually read Rich Dad Poor Dad coming out of college, never did anything with it. But I knew that coming off of 20 years of racing professional triathlon, I wasn't going to get a desk job. I needed to do something where I was in charge of my own schedule. I had my own freedoms. And I think not just financial freedom, but freedom of mobility are really important to me. And I saw investing in real estate as a way to do that. So we bought my wife's from Australia. We bought a property there, and I try to manage it myself. Absolute disaster trying to manage a property in another country. So once again, I realized in a new situation how important the right people around you are, the right team are. So I got that under control. And then I teamed up with a good buddy of mine, Brian Fleischman, who I lived and trained with at the Olympic Training Center. We were on the national team together. We just started talking about it and realized we both wanted to do this. And then we just started buying properties together, and it's just grown from that.
Just jumped into it.
Yeah, we just went for it.
Have you applied some similar principles to your investing in real estate that you have in your competing in triathletes?
Yeah, I think, like I said, putting the right people around you, and Brian is the perfect guy for me. He's a broker. He knows the markets. Has a great ability to find deals. For me, I've always been a guy that's kind of willing to take that step, take the chances. And a lot of times the price on the property might be a couple grand off of what he wants to pay. I'm like, let's just do it, Brian. Like, let's just get this under contract. Let's keep moving forward. And I think that attitude is really important.
So you were a little bit more willing to just jump off the cliff and make it happen.
Well, when I got out of the Navy at the end of 2008, and I never won a professional triathlon race in my life. And I told my parents I'm going to be a professional triathlete. So I gave up healthcare. I gave up a paycheck, potential retirement. I gave up my whole career to go sleep on a couch, right, and try to race my bike. But I knew the potential. I could see the potential in myself before others saw it. And I think that was really important. So, I said, okay, I've got this much money. I've got, maybe 12, 18 months I can live in Boulder and train and try to, make this happen. And then if it doesn't, I'll go do something else. But if it's going to be right now. And that's what
You mentioned the Navy a couple of times, and I'm grateful for your service, as everybody else, our listeners as well. What was your assignment in the Navy?
So I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2003. Service selected.
You're a Naval Academy graduate.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
The ring knocker, is that what they call them?
Yeah, a ring knocker. I don't wear my ring too much. I actually had it on last weekend. My older brother had his change to command ceremony. He just finished up his tour. He was the Commodore of Subgroup 12 in Groton, Connecticut. Big deal. Super proud of him. He's still Navy strong. But yeah, when I graduated, I actually went to Cal Berkeley for graduate school, study ocean engineering as part of a program the Navy had. And then I had service selected explosive ordnance disposal or special operations. And I went to my command. My command saw my potential in triathlon. At that point, I had won the Armed Forces National Championship for 2 years. They're like, Tim's got great potential. We think he might be able to make the Olympic team. And they supported me. I'd already been qualified to be a member of the U.S. national team. So really my command in EOD Group 1, just really, they opened the door for me. They said, Tim, go race, go be represented for the Navy, go be represented for the United States, for the Armed Forces. And I did just that. It was awesome.
Wow, I didn't know that the Navy actually put sort of, I wouldn't say push, but offered, invited you to go that direction. It was kind of a dream as well, right? You were never deployed or anything, they noticed this talent and then started going that direction fairly soon, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was stationed in Coronado, and I went to dive school, went back to the command, and then they kind of sent me to the Olympic Training Center. So I was very fortunate that, especially during 2005, that whole time frame with what was going on in Afghanistan and Iraq, bomb disposal guys they're always in danger. So I'm fortunate that I didn't have to be exposed to that, but at the same time, I was out. Also, I felt a burden that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And at the end of 2008, I actually went and talked to my department head, and I'm at a crossroads. I can get out of the Navy now, or I can go do what I was supposed to do. And he said, Tim, you didn't write your own orders. You've done what we asked you to do. You're behind your year group. Promotion is going to be hard down the line. You have a great gift. So just go keep racing. Remember the Navy, remember the men and women in the Navy that allowed you to do this, and go be the best version of yourself and make us proud. So getting that blessing from Kevin, my department head, was really, really impactful for me, because I didn't feel like I did what I was supposed to do, and that weighed on me. But that conversation really set me on the path that leads us to this very day right now.
Wow. Almost like he was a mentor, a coach, if you will, right? That gave you some
Absolutely, yeah.
good advice to that point. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 lessons that affect you today that you learned from your time in the Navy?
Well, probably not being on time. I'd say I'm
Okay,
probably
you
less
didn't learn that lesson.
Navy. Yeah, no, I didn't. I think mindset is very important, and I've always had that strong mindset. I think having having the support of other people and being part of something greater was really important. And then, geez, it's hard to narrow it down to 3, right? They really shaped me, the totality of me, in such a strong way. But yeah, I do. Yeah, just going back to the mindset, I think that's probably the most important thing. And resiliency. You have to have thick skin going through the whole process in the military, and that sets you up to be strong no matter where you are in life.
This is good, and everyone you said, I can see threads right through what you're doing as a triathlete, right? It's fed through that, and it's also fed through what you're saying earlier about some of what you're doing with your real estate investing, because we're big proponents of real estate. A lot of people we interview on the podcast are in real estate, love real estate, or wanting to get into real estate. Can you tell us just real quick, maybe a time when, other than the heart attack, when there was an experience where you basically skinned your knee, a difficult experience that you overcame, and a lesson that came from that?
I was at a World Cup in Lisbon, Portugal. This is probably, I don't know, maybe 2006, 2007. I was really just trying to break through on that international circuit. And the Olympic distance racing, the format of triathlon that's in the Olympic Games, it's called the draft legal bike. So it's like if you watch the Tour de France or a cycling race, you're cycling in a big group of people. And you can draft, and it's a little more dangerous because there's interactions of bodies and you're going fast. So I'm in the front group of the bike, and the kid in front of me crashes. And I just hit the back of him, fly over him, break both my wheels, carbon wheels, snapped them in half. And I may be like, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile from the finish or so of the bike to start the run. And I'm out of the race, right? But I said to myself, I came here, I flew all the way to Portugal. I'm going to finish this race. I don't know what it's going to mean, probably nothing, but I am getting to that finish line. So I took my cycling shoes off. I threw my bike over my shoulder and I just started running my bike towards transition. And the transition, where, you put your bike in, then you get your run shoes to go off. It was in this sports arena. So I come, and everybody else, the whole race is already gone. They're gone for minutes, right? They're riding at 30 miles an hour and I'm trying to run my bike to the finish line, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away. I come into the stadium, big Jumbotron, and the place just erupts. Like, they're focusing on me on the Jumbotron. There's blood all over me. I'm all cut up. My race suit's all ripped up. And then the place goes crazy. And I got out there. I finished the run. I got dead last by a lot. And I finished. It didn't mean anything. I got last. I got no points, qualifying points for the Olympics or anything. I didn't get any prize money. But for me, it just reinforced that, hey, life isn't easy. Racing isn't easy, but you don't give up. You never give up. You just keep going. If for nothing else other than knowing that you're not a quitter, because once you start quitting, it's so easy to quit again. Quitting. It's like a siren on the rocks, right? It's so tempting. It seems like the greatest thing at the time. It's going to make your life so easier. And then you run right into the rocks and your ship's sinking later on. You got to deal with yourself for really the rest of your life. It's always with you. So I try to see things through every time as much as I can, even sometimes to the detriment of my health if I'm having a heart attack.
We can get any better than that right there, folks. It's like the high point of the whole interview. That's so cool that you did that. I don't have any. Scott, does you have another question or something? That is just awesome. And
no, I think that's a great place to end it off. So I mean, thank you. It's been a fun podcast to listen to you. There's been a lot of nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, that's for me, after one of the realignments that I had after my heart issue was, hey, you're here and you must have a purpose. And, for me, I believe that purpose is to share my story and hopefully not, help others have healthier lives and just maybe learn a little something about themselves to make them a better person along the way too. So it's a pleasure for me to do that with both of you today.
Awesome. Jason, any final words out of you?
Nope, I can't top what he just said. I'm silent.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you again for coming on. It was a blast. And if you'd like to connect with our guest, we will drop his links in the show notes down below. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, make sure to hit us up on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it, we're there. And if you like the show, drop us a review. It really helps us out. Last, remember that mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.